Stress maps work by modifying the degree of bump mapping or surface coloring based on how much the mesh is stretched or shrunk around the point being shaded. The distortions may be due to scaling and layout, the action of bones, dynamics, or the use of a morph map. A couple of examples of when a stress map might be handy is when, say, an arm gets bent around an elbow, or a leg gets bent around a knee, or fingers around the joints, and you want to have some kind of bump map show up so that you can have wrinkles form. In this example, I've got this straight pole shape, just a cylinder, and I've placed a chain of bones, and then I've just animated the bones so that I could get some creases here, kind of bends. These could be, you could see this is an elbow or this is a knee. Let's take a look at what we have set up for the surfacing. Right now, all I have, if I open up my surface editor, I've got a bump map. Okay, and let's do a render. So I've got a simple bump map on this, and it's just these lines, these horizontal lines that go back and forth. And what I can do is I just want those lines to show up in these stressed areas, in the areas that are getting compressed and stretched. So what I'll do is I'll close this down, and we'll come over to frame 10 where we've got them bent, and let's do a render. And all I'm looking for is I just want these lines right here, just in the compressed areas and the stretched areas. I don't need them everywhere. So what I'll do is open up the surface editor, come over to shaders, and under add shader I'm going to add the stress map. Now by default it's set up with everything that I need, so I'm going to close this down. I'm going to do a test render, and with that applied I can see that in the areas that are getting stretched or that are shrinking, that are squeezing in here, I can see that bump map applied, but in areas that aren't being affected, that aren't being distorted, well, we don't have the bump map. Now I really don't want the bump here, so what I'm going to do is go back over to my surface editor, and under wrinkle factor I'm just going to change it to clipped stress area. I just want it in these areas. Okay, so I'm going to do a test render, and with that setting we end up with just the wrinkles where the squeeze is happening, just where the compression is happening. This is a really powerful tool that will allow me to add those little details with very little setup. In this example, I'd like to use a stress map to have the pole here start off with lots of wrinkles, but as it expands out, have the wrinkles in the area that's being stretched, have the wrinkles disappear. And so by default, let's do an F9 render. We start off with all of our wrinkles here, and if we move over here where it's stressed out, do an F9, and the texture is still there. I don't want that. I don't want the wrinkles to be there, so I'm going to set up the stress map so that we can get rid of those. So let's go to the surface editor, shaders, let's choose stress map, and under wrinkle factor let's change it from stress map to custom, and I'm going to use the texture editor here. Let's use a gradient, and from the input parameter I'm going to choose stress map. I'm going to set the value here to 0 and the value here to 1, and I'm just going to pull this down a little bit right here. So I've got a basic gradient that is basically saying that when there is stretching going on, I don't want to see the bump map that's causing the wrinkles, and when there is no stretching going on, well, I want to see the bump map. So I'm going to close this, and we'll close this window, do a test render, and as you can see we've got the wrinkles down here, but the area that's actually being stretched in the geometry, we start to lose the wrinkles, and we have the wrinkles up here that where it's not getting stretched because the bone is placed there. And as we get closer to it being compressed, the wrinkles start showing up, and the closer I get to that, the more wrinkles will appear, until we get back to the base where we have all our wrinkles. In this example, I'd like to use a stress map to modify the surface coloring based on the stretching of this object. To do that, let's use dynamics. I'm going to use cloth effects on this sheet. Right now it's just static, it's not doing anything. But I'm going to go to Object, Properties, come over to the Dynamics tab, add cloth effects. Let's double click to get our properties. I'm going to fix 2 points at the top corners of each end here, and I'm going to apply some gravity. Let's just throw in -3. Okay, and then I'm going to calculate that. So we get a basic pulling down with negative gravity. It's pulling down this sheet, but it's pinned because of the fix here and here. So not that much stretching is taking place down here. Most of the stretching is taking place here and in these areas. Now, if I do a render of this, we get our white sheet. But if I go into my surface editor and under shaders, choose stress map. Now this time there's no bump map applied. I'm just going to use colors. So I'm going to come down here to the stress color. Let's choose something. Let's use this hot pink here. And then for the opacity of that color, I'm going to use a gradient. Let's go into the texture editor, choose gradient, and under input parameter, I'm going to choose stress map. And I'm going to go ahead and set this up. Let's crank up the value to 200% so we can really see what's happening here. And I'm going to do that for both ends, for its stressing and compressing, and then in the middle, when we don't have anything really happening, I'm going to put 0. So I've got this basic gradient here. Let's close this down and take a look. Let's do an F9. So we can see the areas that are really being stressed, whether it's compressing or stretching. We can see that in the color. So the color is driven from that taking place. Now, if we want to have more stress, well, all we have to do is go over to the Dynamics tab here. Let's add -9 gravity, so that when we calculate this, it really gets stretched. So it's really pulling it down. And let's hit F9. And as you can see, of course, it's really intense here because it's really stretching in these areas. Let's back the camera off so that we can take a look at the whole thing. There we go. Kind of fit it into frame there. Do an F9. And you can see this area still really isn't getting that much distortion, but you can see the areas that are. If we come back to this example where we added wrinkles in the stressed area, let's hit F9 to take a look. Okay, so we've got wrinkles in the stressed area. We can also then blend that with changing the surface properties. So what we'll do is come over to Surface Editor, Stress Map, and under Stress Color, well, like we just saw, we can change this color. Let's pick this really light blue. And then under Stress Opacity, let's change that. Again, we'll go to Gradient, Input Parameter to Stress Map, and we'll create just a basic gradient here. Set that to 0. Okay. And now we get to see both the wrinkles and the surface color. So say on a character, when they put their hand into a fist, the knuckles might have creases, but then also might get a little lighter. You know, your knuckles kind of turn a shade brighter when you tense up your fist. And so using this setup, you can blend both color or bump. You're not limited to just using one or the other. Any distortion to the mesh can be taken advantage of by the stress map, and because what you're seeing is based off of the texture editor, you really have endless possibilities with what your stress maps can produce.